It was supposed to be just another meaningless Friday night in the dead-end town of Pine Ridge. The air hung heavy with summer humidity, the kind that made everything feel slow, sticky, and suffocating. No one in their right mind would have chosen to hang out in the abandoned wing of the old high school, but that's exactly where the 5 of them ended up. The misfits. The ones no one remembered in the yearbook. Eli, the quiet kid with dark circles and a camera always dangling from his neck. Tara, the goth artist who drew monsters that looked too real. Damon, the class clown who laughed at everything because if he didn't, he'd probably cry. Maya, the new girl trying too hard to fit in. And Kevin, the self-proclaimed leader who always had something to prove. They called themselves the Unseen. A name that started as a joke but felt truer than they wanted to admit. That night, they'd broken into the old storage building behind the football field, a place rumored to be used for school experiments back in the 70s. Eli had heard that the janitors stored old artifacts there, relics from when Pine Ridge High sponsored an Ancient Civilizations project decades ago. "Come on," Kevin said, kicking open the rusted door. "You guys seriously don't want to see what kind of creepy crap they kept in here?" Tara rolled her eyes but followed, flashlight beam cutting through the dark. The air inside was damp and smelled like old wood and rot. Broken furniture leaned against the walls. Dust hung thick, glittering in the beams of their phones. "Yo," Damon muttered, his voice echoing, "this place feels wrong." Eli was already setting up his camera. "Exactly," he said softly. "That's the point." They wandered deeper until Maya's light caught a small wooden crate shoved under a toppled desk. The lid was cracked, its corners blackened with mold. She knelt down, brushing away cobwebs, and froze when she saw what was inside. A small, jagged whistle. It wasn't like any whistle they'd ever seen, carved from something bone-white and shaped like a snarling skull, its hollow eyes seeming to stare straight back. Strange etchings ran down its sides, symbols that twisted in the light, never settling on one shape. "Looks ancient," Eli murmured, lifting his camera. "Maybe Aztec." "Aztec?" Damon repeated, half laughing. "What, like Indiana Jones' Aztec?" "Yeah," Tara whispered, eyes glued to the whistle. "It's called a death whistle. I've seen it online. They said warriors used it in battle, to mimic the screams of the dying." Kevin grinned. "No way. You think it still works?" "Don't," Maya started, but he was already bringing it to his lips. The sound that came out wasn't a whistle. It was a scream. Not human, not animal, something between both. It tore through the silence, echoing in the walls, vibrating through their bones. It was like 1,000 dying voices crying out all at once, pure pain condensed into sound. The air seemed to twist, and the lights from their phones flickered violently. Eli's camera cut out. When the sound finally stopped, the silence that followed was almost worse. "What the hell?" Tara whispered, clutching her ears. Kevin laughed shakily, lowering the whistle. Holy crap, that was insane. But no one laughed with him. Maya was pale. Damon was staring toward the dark hallway, breathing too fast. Eli checked his camera screen, it was just static. And then came the whisper. It wasn't loud. Just soft enough to make them doubt they'd heard it. A single exhale of breath from the shadows. "One of you." They froze. The beam of Maya's flashlight trembled as she aimed it toward the back of the room. Nothing. Just peeling wallpaper and broken glass. Kevin forced a laugh. "Okay, very funny, Eli. Creepy audio overlay, good one." Eli shook his head. "That wasn't me." The whisper came again. Closer this time. "Soon." Tara grabbed Maya's arm. "We should go. Now." The air felt colder. The smell of rot grew stronger, sour and metallic. Eli tried to focus his lens on the darkness behind the desks, but through the cracked display, he saw something. A figure. For just a split second, a silhouette standing behind Kevin. Too tall, too thin, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its face was covered by something like stretched skin. Eli blinked, and it was gone. They ran. Out through the broken door, past the football field, gasping for air under the orange streetlights. When they finally stopped, Kevin was laughing again, trying to brush it off. Okay. Chill out. It's just a sound. It's not like we summoned a demon or anything. But Eli was staring at the photo that had somehow appeared on his camera roll. He hadn't taken it. It showed the 5 of them standing in that room. And behind them, just barely visible in the dark corner, was the figure. Watching. And its mouth was open, as if it had been the one screaming through the whistle. By Monday morning, Pine Ridge High felt different, quieter somehow. The halls were just as crowded, the lockers still slammed, the fluorescent lights still hummed, but beneath it all was a tension that none of them could quite name. Eli, Tara, Damon, Maya, and Kevin hadn't spoken much since that night. Each of them tried to convince themselves it was nothing, that the sound they'd heard, the whispers, the shadow, the photo, were just adrenaline and tricks of the light. But every one of them was lying. Eli hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the scream again, saw the figure behind Kevin. The photo was still on his camera, and though he deleted it twice, it always reappeared. Each time, the figure seemed closer. He didn't tell the others. Not yet. At lunch, they sat in their usual spot by the back fence. The air was thick and hot, and the sound of cicadas screamed through the trees. Kevin was trying to laugh it off again, chewing through a bag of chips. You guys are seriously still freaked out about that stupid whistle? It's just a piece of bone. Ancient art, that's all. It screamed, Kevin, Maya said flatly, her tone sharper than she intended. That wasn't air or music, it screamed. Maybe it's got, like, holes in a weird shape, Damon muttered, avoiding her gaze. You know, sound physics or whatever. Tara just stared down at her sketchbook. Her drawings had changed. She didn't even realize it until Eli pointed it out later, but all the faces she drew now had mouths wide open, screaming. I can't stop hearing it, she whispered. Even when it's quiet. It's like it's inside my head. Kevin rolled his eyes. You're all acting like it cursed us or something. No one answered. Then, from across the field, the whistle blew. The same bone-shattering scream tore through the air, so loud and sudden that everyone on the lawn froze. Birds scattered from the trees. For a moment, even the cicadas stopped. Kevin jumped up, spinning around. Who the hell? But there was no one there. Just the rustling trees and a soft wind that seemed to carry the echo. That's when Maya noticed something. The sound hadn't come from far away. It had come from inside Kevin's backpack. Kevin, she whispered, eyes wide. Take it out. He looked confused, unzipped his bag, and sure enough, there it was. The whistle. I left it in my room, he stammered. I swear I left it there. Tara backed away. Don't touch it. Guys, it's fine, okay? It's just. The words died in his throat as something cold brushed his neck. He froze. His skin prickled. He turned, slowly, nothing. Then, out of nowhere, Eli's camera, hanging around his neck, powered on by itself. The screen glitched, flickered, and showed a live feed of Kevin. Only, behind him stood a figure again, that same distorted silhouette. Kevin, move. Eli shouted. But it was too late. The figure reached out. Its long, gray hand gripped Kevin's shoulder, and in an instant, his face twisted in pure agony. His body stiffened, every muscle locking tight. A choking sound escaped his throat. The scream that followed didn't come from his mouth. It came from the whistle. It was deafening. Painful. And when it stopped, Kevin dropped. They screamed. Damon grabbed Maya's arm and bolted. Tara stumbled backward, tears streaking through her eyeliner. Eli ran to Kevin, but what he saw made his stomach twist. Kevin's eyes were open, glassy, staring straight up. His lips were blue. His neck had marks, fingerprints. But there was something else. In his frozen hand was the whistle, pressed so tightly his knuckles were white. And carved along the side of the bone, new letters had appeared, etched deep and bleeding faintly. 1. By the time the teachers arrived, they were hysterical. Paramedics tried CPR, but Kevin was gone. The police said it looked like a cardiac arrest, stress-induced, maybe. But Eli, Tara, Maya, and Damon knew better. That night, they gathered again at Eli's house. No one spoke at first. The camera sat on the table, the cursed whistle locked inside a box in Eli's backpack. Finally, Tara broke the silence. He blew it. That's what started it. But we all heard it. We all saw it. It's picking us off, Damon said. His voice trembled. One by one. Maya looked at Eli, eyes shining with fear. You said it was Aztec, right? Maybe it summons something. A spirit or death itself. Eli nodded slowly. There's a legend I read once, about an Aztec god called Mictlantecutli. The Lord of the Dead. They said those who called his scream invited him to claim their souls. Damon's breath hitched. You think that's what this is? Eli didn't answer. But on his camera screen, another image appeared, one that hadn't been there seconds before. It showed Kevin lying in the grass. Behind him, 4 shadows now stood instead of 5. And one of them, the tallest, was looking straight at the lens. The funeral was held 3 days later. Gray skies hung low over Pine Ridge Cemetery, and the sound of rain on umbrellas filled the silence that no one dared to break. Kevin's casket looked too small, too wrong. The adults whispered words like tragic and unexpected, while the rest of the students avoided looking at the group of 4 who stood apart from everyone else. Eli, Tara, Maya, and Damon. They looked hollow, like something had been scraped out of them and left behind. When the priest began to speak, Eli barely heard him. His eyes were locked on the whistle, which sat sealed inside a small glass jar in his backpack. He'd taken every precaution, salt circle, prayer from a website, even duct tape around the lid, but he could still feel it. Like it was breathing in there. Waiting. That night after the funeral, the nightmares began. Maya woke up screaming first. She dreamt of Kevin standing at the foot of her bed, his mouth hanging open, eyes pale and lifeless. When he tried to speak, blood poured out instead of words, and the same sound from the whistle erupted from his throat, muffled, broken, but unmistakable. Damon dreamed of a hallway. Endless. Dark. Every few feet, a door. Behind each one, someone he knew screamed his name. When he finally reached the end, there was a mirror, and the reflection wasn't his. It was the figure from Eli's photo. Tara didn't dream at all, but she heard things. In the walls. The hiss of whispering voices, too faint to understand but too close to ignore. She'd started sleeping with music blasting just to drown it out, but sometimes, beneath the song, she could still hear the faint echo of that impossible scream. Eli's torment was worse. His camera recorded on its own. He'd wake up to find hours of footage, dark rooms, static, flickering shadows moving across his walls. Once, at 3:06 a.m., he played one of the videos and nearly dropped the camera. It was a close-up of his sleeping face. The lens had been inches away. And from the corner of the screen, a long, pale hand reached toward him. He smashed the camera that night. But the next morning, it was sitting back on his desk, untouched, unbroken. Something was following them. That evening, they met again in Tara's basement, the only place her parents never went. Candles flickered around them, and a map of Pine Ridge lay spread across the table, covered in notes and drawings. Eli had printed out every photo, every frame of footage, searching for patterns. "It's not just random," he said, voice shaking. "Look, Kevin's death happened 2 days after he blew the whistle. The nightmares started right after that. It's counting down." Maya frowned. "Counting down to what?" Tara looked up from her sketchbook. Her voice was barely a whisper. "To us." She turned the page, revealing her latest drawing. It showed 4 figures standing in the dark, her, Eli, Damon, and Maya. Above them, a shadow loomed, its mouth wide open, as if it were devouring them whole. On the bottom of the drawing, in faint red ink, was a word she swore she hadn't written. 2. Damon swore and stood up, pacing. "Okay, no. No, this is insane. We're freaking ourselves out. We just need to get rid of it. Smash it. Burn it. Something." Eli shook his head. "It doesn't work that way. These things, they bind. Destroying the object could make it worse." Maya's voice cracked. "Then what the hell do we do? Wait for it to come for us?" Before anyone could answer, Tara's basement lights flickered. The candles wavered as if something had exhaled. And then came the sound. A faint whistle. Not loud. Not sharp. Just enough to crawl under their skin. They froze. The sound wasn't coming from the jar on the table, it was coming from upstairs. Eli stood slowly, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Stay here." He crept up the stairs, each step groaning under his weight. The house was silent except for the faint dripping of water from a leaky pipe. He reached the kitchen, and saw the back door standing open, swaying slightly in the breeze. Something had come inside. As he turned, he caught a glimpse of it reflected in the window. A figure, thin, gray, its head tilted back like it was listening for something. Its mouth hung open wider than humanly possible. Eli froze. His breath hitched. And from the dark corner of the kitchen, a soft voice whispered his name. "Eli." He stumbled back, nearly falling down the stairs. The others looked up as he burst into the basement, pale and shaking. "It's here," he gasped. "It followed us." The candles blew out all at once. And from somewhere in the pitch-black room, the whistle screamed again, so loud that their ears bled. When the lights flickered back on, Damon was gone. Where he'd been sitting, the concrete floor was wet with blood, and carved into the ground in long, deep scratches was a single word. 2. By the next morning, Pine Ridge felt like a ghost town. The sun was out, but everything looked dim, washed out, colorless. The air was heavy, and even the wind seemed to move slower, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Damon's disappearance was all over the school news. His parents said he'd vanished in the middle of the night, his window open, sheets tangled, a trail of muddy footprints leading out into the woods. The police thought he'd run away. But Eli, Tara, and Maya knew better. They didn't sleep. Couldn't. The sound of that whistle still echoed in their bones. It was as if it had embedded itself in their ears, an endless note that pulsed with every heartbeat. They met in Eli's garage that evening. He'd covered the windows with blankets, taped newspaper over the cracks in the door, and kept the jar with the whistle on the workbench, wrapped in layers of duct tape and salt. It pulsed faintly, as if there were something alive inside. Maya sat with her knees pulled to her chest, trembling. "We're next, aren't we?" Eli didn't answer. He stared at the jar, the shadows dancing across it as the single hanging bulb flickered. Tara leaned against the wall, her voice flat. "It's feeding off us. Fear, maybe. Guilt. Something. Every time one of us dies, the next gets marked. Eli turned his camera on the table. That's what I think too. Look. He pulled up a photo. It showed the group from the night they first found the whistle, 5 kids in the dark. Now, only 3 figures remained visible. The others were fading, their faces barely there. And the tall, distorted shadow behind them was clearer than ever. Its eyes, empty black holes, seemed to be looking directly at whoever viewed the photo. It's documenting it, Eli whispered. Like it's proud. Maya wiped her tears. We have to stop it. There has to be something we can do. Tara exhaled shakily. Maybe there's a way to return it. These curses, they come from somewhere, right? Maybe it wants to go back. Eli nodded slowly. The whistle's Aztec. If it's tied to their death rituals, there must be a legend about breaking the connection. He pulled up his laptop, typing furiously. For hours, the 3 of them scoured obscure forums, anthropology sites, and digitized museum records. Most were myths, urban legends twisted by time. But one passage stood out, translated from a Spanish missionary's journal in 1578. The death whistle, a vessel of the underworld's call. When sounded by the living, it tears the veil and summons Mictlantecuhtli's herald to claim the soul of he who dares disturb it. To undo its curse, the whistle must be silenced by the same breath that awoke it, offered in the place of its birth, where the blood first fell. Eli leaned back, his voice low. We have to take it back to where it was found. That's where it began. Tara frowned. The old storage building? But they demolished it yesterday. Maya blinked. What? Yeah, Tara said. I saw it this morning. It's gone. They fenced off the area. Said the ground was unstable. Eli's stomach sank. Then the whistle has no home anymore. The light bulb flickered, once, twice, and then burst, showering them in sparks. Darkness swallowed the garage. Maya screamed. Eli grabbed his flashlight, flicking it on, the beam shaking as he scanned the room. The jar on the workbench was open. The duct tape lay peeled back in neat, perfect strips. The lid was gone. And the whistle was no longer inside. Eli's breath caught. No, 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 no. Then, from somewhere outside, came the faint sound of someone whistling. Not the scream, just a tune. A haunting, uneven melody. They froze, listening. The sound drifted closer. Step by step. Footsteps echoed on the driveway gravel. Eli, Maya whispered, voice trembling. Who's that? He turned toward the door, flashlight beam trembling. The shadows under the crack in the door shifted. Someone, or something, was standing just outside. Then, a whisper, ragged, low, broken. Damon. The garage door creaked open an inch, then another. The flashlight caught a face, pale, dripping mud, eyes milky white. It was Damon. But his mouth was wrong. It was stretched wide, his jaw hanging open at an impossible angle. From deep in his throat came that same bone-rattling scream, muffled and distant, as if he were choking on it. His fingers twitched at his sides. Maya screamed, backing away. Tara grabbed a wrench from the workbench. Eli stood frozen. Damon, he whispered, tears in his eyes. The thing wearing Damon's skin tilted its head. Its voice was two-toned, his, and something else speaking through him. You blew it, it croaked. Now, it breathes for you. Then its mouth opened wider, a long shadow spilling from it like smoke, coiling through the air. The sound of the whistle shrieked again, splitting their eardrums. When it ended, Damon's body crumpled to the floor, lifeless again. The shadow had vanished. But on the wall, written in dripping black streaks, was a word. 3. They stood in silence, gasping, trembling, broken. Eli finally whispered what all of them were thinking. It's not coming for us one by one anymore. Tara swallowed hard. Then what? Eli looked down at the whistle, now sitting neatly on the floor in front of them, as if it had crawled there on its own. It's coming for all of us. The next 2 nights felt endless. Sleep was a luxury none of them could afford, every shadow seemed to move, every sound felt like a warning. The whistle had become a living thing now. They could feel it, hear it, sense it. It wasn't just an object anymore, it was part of their world. Eli, Tara, and Maya stayed in the same house for safety. Eli's father was away on business, leaving the place empty and eerily quiet. Every door was locked, every curtain drawn, every light left on. Yet, somehow, the darkness still seeped in. Maya sat at the kitchen table, her fingers trembling as she held her phone. I called the museum in Phoenix, she said quietly. They had a curator who knew about Aztec artifacts. I told him about the whistle. Tara lifted her head slowly. What did he say? Maya's eyes were glassy. He told me, those whistles were never meant to be blown by the living. He said they were used during human sacrifices, to call the god of death himself. When the victim's heart was torn out, the whistle was sounded so the god would hear their last breath. Eli closed his eyes, his stomach twisting. So when Kevin blew it, he offered his breath, Maya said softly. He gave it life again. The room fell into heavy silence. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the wooden floor. Tara finally whispered, it wants to finish what it started. Eli opened his laptop, pulling up the same journal entry from before. It says here that the only way to silence it is to return it where it first tasted blood. But that's impossible now. The ground's been cleared. What if, Maya said suddenly, it's not about the place, but the act. Maybe it wants another sacrifice. Eli looked up sharply. You mean, someone has to die? Maya nodded, tears welling in her eyes. It's either one of us, or all of us. Tara slammed her hand on the table. No. No one else dies. There has to be another way. Before Eli could respond, the power went out. The house plunged into complete darkness. The sound came next. Not the whistle. Not yet. This was different, like breathing. Deep, slow, ragged breaths echoing through the halls. The kind of sound that made your chest tighten and your skin crawl. Maya clutched Eli's arm. It's inside. Eli grabbed his flashlight, flicking it on. The beam trembled as it cut across the living room, shadows shifting in ways that made no sense. The air felt heavy, charged, like something unseen was pressing down on them. Then, faintly, the sound of footsteps. Coming from the hallway. Tara whispered, "Don't move." The steps stopped. And then, in the darkness, something whistled. Not loud. Not the full scream, just a short, sharp note. The sound of something testing its voice. The flashlight flickered, and in that split second of dying light, Eli saw it. The figure stood in the hall, tall, gray, skin stretched tight over bone, mouth impossibly wide. Its eyes were hollow pits. It held the whistle in its hand. The light went out completely. Maya screamed. Tara grabbed her and pulled her toward the back door. Eli stumbled after them, trying to remember the layout in the dark. The house seemed to twist, stretch, the hallways longer than they should be. Every direction they turned, the breathing followed. Then, a whisper, cold and rasping. 3 breaths left. The floorboards groaned as something moved above them. They burst out into the backyard, gasping for air. The night sky loomed above, thick with low clouds. Eli turned to lock the door, but the figure was already there, staring at them through the glass. It pressed one hand against the window, leaving a black handprint that seemed to smoke. Its mouth opened, and from deep inside came the sound of countless screams, overlapping, distorted, human and not. Eli lifted the jar he'd been carrying, the whistle was still sealed inside. "You want it?" he shouted. "Then take it." He hurled it at the ground. The jar shattered. The whistle rolled across the grass, landing at the figure's feet. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the air grew colder, freezing. A wind tore through the yard, and the grass around the whistle turned black. The figure bent down slowly, its bones creaking, and picked it up. Eli's chest tightened. "Run," he said hoarsely. "Run now." They ran down the street, barefoot, breath ragged, hearts pounding. Behind them, the scream of the whistle tore through the night, louder, longer, sharper than ever before. Windows shattered. Streetlights blew out one by one as they fled. The sound followed them, chasing them like a storm. By the time they reached the old field behind the school, the scream had faded into an echo, but the damage was done. Maya's nose was bleeding. Tara's ears were ringing. Eli fell to his knees, clutching his chest. And on the ground before them, the whistle appeared again, lying perfectly still, as if it had been waiting for them all along. This time, there was something new carved into it. Not a number. A word. Breath. Tara whispered, voice cracking, "What does it mean?" Eli looked up, his face pale as death. "It means we're out of time." The next day came like a nightmare that refused to end. Pine Ridge looked the same, people going to work, cars on the road, kids walking to school, but to Eli, Tara, and Maya, it all felt like a lie. The world hadn't realized it yet, but something ancient and evil had already torn its way through the veil between life and death. They hadn't gone home after that night. They couldn't. They spent the morning hiding in the public library, whispering between shelves, searching for anything, that could tell them how to stop the curse. But every book they opened said the same thing in a dozen different ways: once the whistle is blown, the soul is marked. The sound cannot be unmade. Tara slammed a book shut, her hands shaking. "We're already dead," she muttered. "We just don't know when it's going to happen." "Don't say that," Maya hissed, tears in her eyes. "There has to be a way." Eli rubbed his temples, his voice hollow. "Maybe it's not about stopping it. Maybe it's about finishing it, giving it what it wants so it lets the rest of us go." Tara stared at him. "You mean, a sacrifice?" Eli nodded slowly. "It started with Kevin. His breath gave it life. If we give it a final breath, maybe it'll end." "No," Maya whispered. "You're not doing that." Before Eli could answer, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. The air turned thin and heavy, as if all the oxygen had been sucked away. Books rustled on their shelves. Pages fluttered. And then came the sound. The whistle. Soft at first, distant, almost gentle, but filled with something wrong. The sound twisted through the aisles, and every light in the library flickered violently. People screamed, running for the exits as glass shattered above them. "Run!" Eli shouted. They bolted through the emergency door, stumbling out into the rain. The sound followed them, echoing down the streets like it was coming from everywhere at once. They ran until their lungs burned, stopping only when they reached the outskirts of town, a stretch of dead trees and windswept fields that led toward the ruins of the old storage building. Maya collapsed to her knees, gasping. "Why here? Why does it always pull us back?" Eli looked around. The building was gone, but the ground was still scorched, blackened, and cracked like something had burned its way out from beneath. Because this is where it was found. The first blood. The beginning. The wind howled through the broken trees. Then, faintly, something whispered through the air. "Return, the breath." Tara clutched her head, wincing. "Did you hear that?" Eli swallowed hard. "Yeah. It wants us to give it back." Maya's voice trembled. "But how?" The answer came before he could think. From the edge of the field, the fog began to move. Not drift, move. It slithered low across the ground, shaping itself into vague, human outlines. Faces began to form within the mist: Kevin, Damon, countless others, all pale and distorted, mouths open in silent screams. Maya backed away. Oh my God! The air was thick with the smell of decay. The figures turned toward them, their eyes black pits, and from deep within the fog, a shape emerged. The figure. It was larger now, clearer, like it had been feeding. The hollow eyes locked on Eli, and the ground beneath them began to hum. Then came the whistle's scream, deafening, shattering, ripping through their skulls. Eli fell to his knees, clutching his head. Tara screamed, her nose bleeding. Maya tried to cover her ears, but it didn't help. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was inside their minds. The fog surged forward, wrapping around them. Cold hands brushed their skin. Kevin's voice whispered in Maya's ear, "Breathe for me." She shrieked, pushing away, tears streaming down her face. "Make it stop." Eli forced himself to look at the figure. Its jaw opened wider, splitting the skin at the corners. Inside its mouth, the whistle pulsed, alive, glowing faintly with a sickly yellow light. And then Eli understood. "It wants our breath," he gasped. "That's the curse, it takes our breath and replaces it with its own. That's why it screams, it's the sound of death breathing through us." The figure moved closer, each step bending the air around it. Tara stumbled backward, clutching the ground, her voice breaking. "Eli, what do we do?" He looked at the thing, at the fog that writhed like living smoke, and made a decision he didn't know he had in him. "I'm going to end it." Before they could stop him, Eli stepped forward, toward the figure. "You want a breath?" he shouted. "Take mine." The figure hesitated, then lunged. Its hand gripped Eli's face, cold as stone. The whistle's glow flared, and Eli gasped, choking as his breath was ripped from his lungs. His scream mixed with the sound of the whistle, one voice feeding the other until the air itself seemed to collapse inward. Then, silence. The figure staggered, flickered, and began to dissolve into smoke. The fog recoiled, shrieking. The wind howled violently, tearing through the trees. Maya crawled forward, screaming Eli's name. He lay motionless on the ground, pale, his eyes open but empty. The whistle lay beside him, cracked down the center. Tara touched it with trembling fingers. It was cold. Dead. "It's over," she whispered. But as they turned to leave, a faint sound echoed behind them, soft, almost like breathing. Then the whistle gave one last, fragile note. And carved into the dirt beside Eli's body were two words. "Not yet." The night after Eli's death was not a night at all. It was an eternity. Tara and Maya sat huddled in the back of a gas station parking lot, the world outside soaked in cold rain. Neither had spoken in hours. Their clothes were stiff with mud, their faces hollow from shock and sleeplessness. The whistle, cracked, faintly pulsing, lay wrapped in Eli's torn jacket between them. Maya stared at it, trembling. "He gave it everything," she whispered. "He gave his breath. It should have been over." Tara's eyes were red. "Maybe it's not enough. Maybe it doesn't want just one." The rain pounded harder. The lights of the gas station flickered, and for a second, everything went dark. When they came back on, the whistle had rolled a few inches closer to Tara's boot. She froze. "Maya," she whispered. "It's moving." Maya's heart sank. "Don't touch it." But the whistle began to breathe. A soft, hollow inhale, followed by a long, drawn-out exhale that rattled the puddles around it. The sound was low, deep, and human, yet not quite. And then, faintly, Eli's voice. "Tara." Her blood ran cold. "No. Tara, help me." Maya stood, backing away. That's not him. It's using him. The whistle's breathing grew faster, heavier, almost desperate, like lungs gasping for air. Then came another voice, Kevin's, layered on top of Eli's. Come back, it's so cold here. The air around them began to freeze, each breath forming mist. The sound of footsteps echoed faintly from the road, wet, dragging, slow. Maya turned, her throat tightening. Through the rain, figures were coming toward them. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Pale silhouettes of people they'd known, Kevin, Damon, Eli, every soul the whistle had ever touched. Their mouths were open, each one exhaling the same fog. They're breathing for it, Tara whispered. It's feeding. Maya's voice shook. We have to destroy it. We can't, Tara said. It'll kill us first. Then it'll kill everyone else. Maya looked down at the whistle. The crack that ran through its skull-like shape had widened, leaking faint light, like a heartbeat glowing inside bone. She reached for it. Tara grabbed her wrist. Maya, no. Maya met her eyes, tears streaming. Someone has to end it. It wants a breath, it can have mine. Before Tara could stop her, Maya lifted the whistle. It was icy cold, biting into her skin. The air around her grew still, too still. Even the rain seemed to hang motionless. She brought it to her lips. Tara, she whispered, tell them we didn't run away. Then she blew. The sound that erupted was unlike anything the world had ever known. It wasn't just a scream, it was every scream. Every soul it had ever taken crying out all at once. The sound tore through the sky, splitting clouds, shattering windows miles away. Tara dropped to her knees, covering her ears, blood running from them instantly. The ground shook beneath her. Lights exploded in every direction. When she dared to look up, Maya was floating, her eyes rolled back, the whistle burning white in her hands. The spirits surrounding them were being dragged into the light, screaming as they disintegrated, their fog-like bodies torn apart and sucked into the glowing fissure that was once the whistle's mouth. The sound intensified. Tara screamed Maya's name, but it was drowned out by the roar. The light was blinding. Then, in an instant, silence. Tara blinked through the rain. The field was empty. The fog was gone. The sky had cleared. Maya was lying in the mud, motionless. The whistle was gone. Completely. Tara crawled to her, shaking. Maya, please, wake up. But Maya didn't move. Her chest didn't rise. Her lips were pale. And then, slowly, her eyes opened. For a moment, Tara felt a surge of relief. But then she froze. Maya's eyes weren't her own. They were black, deep, endless, like the void. She smiled faintly, her voice soft and distant. It's quiet now, she whispered. Can you hear it? Tara's heart pounded. Hear what? The breath, Maya said, tilting her head. It's still here. Tara backed away, shaking her head. No, you stopped it. Maya stood, her movement slow, unnatural. She turned toward the distant town. The wind picked up, swirling around them, carrying a faint, hollow sound. It was a whistle. Soft. Low. Endless. Tara's scream echoed through the fields as Maya began to walk away, her figure dissolving into the mist that returned to swallow her whole. By morning, Pine Ridge was silent. No birds, no wind, only the faint sound of breathing that seemed to come from the earth itself. When the police arrived, they found the gas station empty. No signs of struggle. Just a single line carved into the wet pavement, as if by invisible hands. The breath continues. And somewhere, far beyond the town's edge, beneath the soil and stone, something old exhaled once more, its hollow wind carrying through the night. The whistle was alive again.